Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Festival of Enterprise COVID-19 webinar series. I'm David Stevenson, your host, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We have an exciting session this morning. I'm joined this morning by Ingrid Devin from Dell, who's the director of Dell's Women's Entrepreneur Network, Fee Bendel, who is the CEO at the Female Social Network, and Dr. Maria Kempinska, MBE, who's author, speaker, entrepreneur. And this morning we are going to be doing a session on how to network effectively when you're at home. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.
Hi.
With that, I'll hand Thank you, Ingrid. I'll hand it over to you now.
Okay, thank you, David. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to, I think, what's a really interesting subject at this time at the moment. So I'm Ingrid Devin, I work for Dell Technologies, and I always think I have a pretty cool job because I lead Dell Women's Entrepreneur Network, a global network with women from 50 plus countries. And I'm delighted to be joined by two of our UK members here this morning. You know, when we think about it, when we think about today and networking, it's just such a challenge at the moment. It's very different from what we used to be doing. And that's what we really want to talk about this morning, the difference from networking as we normally do, going to events, doing different things. And now we're having to do it virtually. And it's one of the daily challenges I have leading this global network. How do I bring people together? And normally it's a little bit easier because I have events, face-to-face events. Now my daily challenge is, how do I bring the women together virtually? And that's what we really want to talk about this morning. And I'm hoping to learn a little bit from Fee and Maria this morning about how I can do that in my network and how you can do that in your network as well. So I'd like to hand over to Maria to introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. And this is a great way to communicate. To a great extent, I prefer this. So I actually started Jongleurs in 1983. Jongleurs was comedy, and I set up 16 comedy clubs, and it was the largest comedy club chain globally. I've met all sorts of comedians and have had the joy of having great laughs at the end every week, so I'm very fortunate. I now am developing the Dingwalls brand into an entertainment school, so that's mixing music and comedy. But also in the meantime, because when life gets stressful, I do something even more stressful. I decided to do a PhD in the process of stand-up comedy and psychoanalysis. So anything you want to know about that, ask me. But most of all, networking is absolutely crucial in business. So I'd be delighted to answer any of the questions.
Fee, over to you.
Oh, hi. Well, yeah, I'm kind of, I suppose the best way to introduce me is Bridget Jones's Guide to Entrepreneurship. I've been running my own businesses for 27 years, mainly in digital, technology and psychology. Currently, the Female Social Network is a mass aggregate of networks. It's the longest tail of the web. So it's all those different groups, forums, networks of women in particular, and how they connect and how opinion drives different patterns of behavior. And we focus on 6% of about a reach of about 95 million women globally that we've got in the network. And you know, it's amazing working with people like DWEN because we're very aligned in terms of that kind of how we can collaborate, support and work with each other. And indeed, you know, Maria and myself is another really good example of that. You know, while we've been in lockdown, we've been collaborating on projects, how we can create and do really different things. And I think that maybe we can talk about that a little bit later around the power of that networking to create opportunity rather than to feel that we are just locked down and the world has stopped completely. But thank you for having me. Thank you.
And that's a great, Fee, you know, looking at it as an opportunity. And I think that's something that we've all got to do. It's something very different now. It's kind of what we call the new normal. So one of the reasons I love working with entrepreneurs is they keep saying to me, well, now I have to think, you know, it's a new normal. What am I going to do different? How am I going to pivot my business? How am I going to restructure? And then that's so, so important. And networking is key to that. When you're looking for ideas to restructure, to pivot your business, you need to be talking to others. You need to be getting those ideas because the more of us that come together, we're more creative and more innovative. So Maria, just to start with you, do you want to talk to us? I mean, I always think when we talk about networking, some people don't like the word networking. You know, they feel it's a little bit not something that maybe I want to be doing or seen as a networker. But actually, it's really crucial to us, particularly to entrepreneurs. So, Maria, do you want to just talk about what actually is networking? Why do we do it? And what do we get out of networking?
I think networking has got to be seen as a party for business. I think we've got to take the sting out of it, because that is the hardest thing. You walk into a room and you're thinking, well, who's there? How do I announce myself? How will people notice me? What's the difference between what I do and what they do? Very often, actually, I think networks don't announce themselves correctly, all the people in there. And I think as a business owner of comedy clubs and the club factor, I think what this online media did, which you don't get in a room, is that it tells everybody who we are. You can create an immediate impact with somebody, which you can't do when you're in a room, because there's so many of you. Here, the focus has to be on you. You can't all talk at the same time. So I think the advantage at the moment is that you can do that. And the advantage is also that you can give somebody that attention, which you don't always do in the room. There aren't many distractions apart from what's going on in your own home. So you've got the focus, you've got the camera on you, and you've got the camera on the other people you're speaking to. And that is an amazing thing for networking online. So what is the purpose of networking? Is meeting people you wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to meet. So one of the things that I have done, and particularly with Fee, and I feel that Fee and I have got to this point where we are networking buddies. I will introduce Fee to people and Fee will introduce me to people. And I think there's nothing worse than going cold to somebody, because A, they've got to look you up, B, they've got an attitude with you already. So if somebody introduces you as a networking buddy, your life just comes up in a different way. You're much more comfortable. You can say what you want to say. But I think another thing about networking is meeting people you just don't know that you could meet.
I think that's really true. I've just seen Simon Cox is talking about, you know, that small business phenomena as well. And I think that's true. I think what happens, and you probably see this, we discussed this the other day, Ingrid at DWEN, often when you go to an event, you still see people when they queue up for their lunch standing just with their buddy, rather than you know, being confident enough to go and talk to other people. And I think it's really important, even when we go back to live, you know, in the room, that I think this time, this virtual time, to Maria's point, will give us the confidence to go, actually, you know, I will go and meet Simon. You know, I've seen him on this stream now and he's putting up some really good comments, or, you know, the relationship even between the four of us on these screens here will last for a long time because it's in unprecedented times. And so I actually think the strength of networking in a virtual environment actually deepens the relationship. Ironically, that's certainly what I'm finding. You know, I think people are grouping together in a far more meaningful, heartfelt way. I don't know if that's how you guys feel, but I certainly do.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at one of the comments there saying he's networking in Liverpool today and not to Edinburgh. You can get a lot more around the world. I regularly start with Australia in the morning, then go to Europe and then go to the US all in one day. And that is the power. I just want to say something that you just said there earlier, Maria, about it's a party for business. It is a great, you know, that's a lovely way to think about it. It is fun, it is connecting. And I think we all need that, you know, that connection at the moment is so important, whether it's the business connection, but it's also the personal connection. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are having Zoom wine nights and all these different things, or house party, or teams, or whatever they're on at the moment. So I want to ask you about that, Fee. So it is different. You know, a lot of us are very used to doing the face-to-face networking. A lot of the times when I talk to our members, and one of the things they talk a lot is about, you know, when they're going for funding, they go out networking every night. They're always going to invest because they know to find an investor, It takes a lot of time. So different things at different stages of your business. But now you're having to do that virtually. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit, Fee, about what are the challenges, in staying connected, personally, professionally? How do you plan to do that virtually? So if somebody maybe hasn't been doing enough of it, how can they get started with this virtual networking?
I think, again, it goes back to that word confidence. It's actually, in my world, I've done a lot of work, obviously, in the digital space for many, many years. And, I've worked with a lot of CEOs, and it's amazing how scared they are of sending out their first tweet or doing, their first LinkedIn post. And they think suddenly the whole world's going to see it. And of course, they're probably not as important in the whole Twitter sphere as they might think they are, that people aren't all going to read it and it's not going to suddenly go viral. So I think there's a real, like I say, I go back to that word confidence. And I am a, prolific networker. I run a network. And even I have found this time quite challenging to go, I just can't be bothered. And, it's even with dear friends, not even a business sense, on some Zoom drinks. And we're all suffering from quite a lot of fatigue, which is common with what we're all going through. And so there is this element of having to really make an effort. And we have to do that in what I would call the real world, the old normal. We had to make an effort. You have to go, I'm not just going to stand with my buddy at an event. I am going to go and break into that circle and talk to people, because I don't know if I'll find that investor or I'll find that person. And it's exactly the same now, where we've got to actually schedule our days and make an effort and go, I am going to commit to that Zoom meeting. I'm not going to overdo it, though. I've got some friends who are just doing back-to-back Zoom meetings. And I think quality and quantity is still an important notion, right? I think you're better really going, well, these are the really quality connections I can make and the meetings that I can create. And whether they're on Zoom or WhatsApp or, whether you're on video or not on video. And I think that's really, really important, is you still need to look at quality. You still need to look at your why. Why are you doing it? And it might just be because you're feeling lonely and isolated. I'm here as a single parent, so it is quite isolating. But, you need to have your why behind it. So the same business principles apply. But it's also having confidence and making the time and giving the effort to do that without overdoing it, So think about your why. I can see you want to add to that, Maria.
Yeah, I do, because it's so interesting what you said there, Fee. And when it comes to investors, what I have learned just recently, because I'm going through investment in Dingwall to expand the brand into entertainments and online brand, we've had to change focus from live to digital, although it was on the business plan anyway. I was talking to a broker, and he said that he is being asked to recommend people to invest in. So investors cannot decide who they should invest in via online media. So they're leaving it to people that know them to give them a heads up. Because online just doesn't give you the relationship that you might have built up on a one-to-one. So bear that in mind. Talk to people that you already know to help you build a relationship with investors. Also, from my experience, is I can be a little bit more direct in the questions I ask, because you're not in a room full of other people. You're not being distracted. I come back to that point. Distraction is a very big point when you're going for investment. You're either in a room of a number of people, or you're distracted by the atmosphere, the ambience, the other people around. What are their expectations? Am I saying the right thing? Now it's, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? What do you want to hear from me? How do you want me to present? So I sent a presentation in that was a number of pages, and I was told to come back with 2 pages. So because I asked, is this good enough? They came back and said, no, do it like this. Can you send me an example? You're in a perfect time to ask questions that you couldn't have asked before. Ask for guidance. How do you want to see this? How do you want to communicate? What do you think the world wants from me that I'm offering you today? How should I, if you've got a broker, How should I present my business plan to you and to the investors? And they will guide you. And it's a wonderful time for that. But write down your questions, be specific, because the normal, having a drink, being interrupted won't happen. So you can ask those questions. Also, be specific about the amount of money you want. Know your industry. Know that you're turning into a different direction or hiring in a different direction of your business. And tell them, right, I'm going to focus on this. How should I present that? And I think your broker or your investor will like that about you, that you are thinking entrepreneurially. And it's like you're on navigating a very stormy sea in a ship, but you know how to navigate it. Talk about income streams, talk about your networks, who you're communicating with, and create your network. Talk to distributors, talk to salespeople, find out about Amazon if you've got a product. Know what you're going to go for, even if it may be the wrong thing today. But get your backup, get your information. Start building your product or your business as if it's already working. I think that you go to people with something definite, and it's the confidence in your voice that they will listen to.
That's some really good advice, Maria, and I think it's so important when you're, going the networking and having other people who can advocate for you at this time, and making sure that you actually plan who those advocates are, who can reach out to the investors and say they've worked with you, know your business. So important, because you don't have that face-to-face. So, and I'm looking at some of the comments here, and it is hard. It is different. We all miss those kind of the personal hugs and the close. But for the moment, we have to restructure. We don't have a choice. So I also like the idea, somebody said, yes, I think we all agree. Sometimes being on Zoom is really hard. It's breaking that up. It's using WhatsApp, maybe. And sometimes we've discovered in work, we just don't use video. We use video sometimes for maybe people I don't know. But if I'm on with my own team, we're varying it up. And I think that's what we all have to do. And just make calls a little bit easier. Always make sure you have a 5 or 10 minute break between each call. Some of this we're talking about is a little bit hard as we do it. So Maria, I want to ask you, obviously part of your work, how do you use humor to connect and network? How can we bring a little bit of fun into virtual networking?
Well, this morning was the first time I'd met David. So it was great to connect. And I was talking to him about how you look on video. And I've noticed that there was, in the papers this morning, there was an Italian anchor, a presenter who was doing something, and a naked woman walked past him in the background. And this was all over the paper. And it wasn't his girlfriend, so he's been found out. I know. And Prini was doing something about makeup and beauty on the network. And her husband, again, was walking naked into the shower. So, there's lots of little stories that you can pick up that are humorous openers to either an industry or where we're going with this. There's a lot of people making great mistakes from us just to pick up on. Or if you've got, I get lots and lots of small videos sent to me, and I'm lucky to be in the industry of humor. And you can say, oh, I've got this video of this and this and this. Or pick up something that's happening in their industry. It's a funny story. Just be attentive to, have your own network in your head. Have your net that goes out and casts in and brings in different little stories that you can exchange with people that are appropriate to either the time or the place or the industry. Be mindful of hurting people. You can self-deprecate, but don't put other people down. Keep it away from politics. keep it away from conspiracy theories, unless it's funny. So think about how you place your humor, but humor is a wonderful door opener. And I must say, particularly for women. And for women who talk to men, it's brilliant to have something funny to say. And don't assume that you have to tell a joke. It can be about something. And people are ready to laugh, I promise you, because I've been in that world and I do that all the time. But self-deprecation is key as well. Don't assume that if people are putting you on a platform, bring yourself to a level where they can engage with you, because that's what self-deprecating humor is. So enjoy that moment.
It's funny because I understand that Bumble is doing a great job of Zoom dates.
I don't know if I have Zoom dates, to be honest.
Being single myself, I haven't dared go that far. But
no, I wouldn't. But that's the type of thing we talk about. At what point do you do a Zoom date? I know.
And I think it's what works for you, you know, some really good tips there, Maria, you know, to be self-deprecating, to be careful of the political, and make sure you don't offend. So you just have to be careful. Again, it depends on what country you're talking to, what industry you're talking to, the type of person. I always remember a very basic tip I got years ago, not to do with humor, but just if you're going to an event, just make sure you've read the papers that morning. So when you do, it's a little bit hard. And I think it's the same when you're virtual networking. I mean, there's pretty much all the same news in the newspapers at the moment, but it's maybe trying to think of something different, just that's relevant to the person that you're talking to. So you do have that opener when you start that conversation. But I think the good thing about this now is people are getting a lot more used to virtual networking, and that going forward, I think it will be a mix of virtual and face-to-face, which is really great, because I think that will enable us all to network and connect a lot more rather than just focusing on one or the other. And, you know, I was just talking about there, sometimes I always remember face-to-face, it can be a bit daunting going into a room on your own if you don't have a buddy with you. And Fee, you've mentioned a number of times about the confidence factor and having that confidence, whether it's going to, you know, face-to-face event or whether you're connecting with somebody virtually for the first time. And maybe it's not just one-on-one, maybe there's 6 or 7 of you. How do you know, get your message across? How do you, so can you talk to us a little bit, Fee, about having the confidence, and is it a different type of confidence from going face-to-face or going virtually?
I think that we as human beings, we behave in a similar way in terms of our confidence, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. And, you know, we have to have confidence to break into that circle of people at a physical networking event and go, hi, I'm Fee, this is what I do, what do you do? And not, you know, just stand with your friend that you might have gone with or by yourself and sort of not really know what to do. And that's part of the art of networking, you know, and it's a skill. It's a bit like public speaking, to actually be able to go, actually, you know, I'm going to go and introduce myself. That's the purpose of being at this event. And I think always reminding yourself that if you're going to a networking event, people should expect you to break into a circle and introduce themselves, and we should all embrace that. And I think that's the same virtually as well. I think in a virtual sense, you can feel a little bit more confident, or some people can, because you don't feel that you're necessarily putting yourself out there in that physical space in the way that you do it physically. But as I said before, I think it actually takes a little bit of planning as well. You want to know why you're doing it, why you're connecting. I mean, across our network, there are millions of virtual events happening. These women are being incredibly creative. They're incredibly, you know, they're collaborating and doing some great things. But like I said before, there still has to be a why and what you're going to get out of that, and plan around that. Just because it's virtual, you don't need to be kind of sloppy about it. And I think by being quite planned out and thinking it through, that gives you the confidence. I think the other benefit of the time going through is when we go to these events, when you meet someone, it's often hard to stay in touch with them because LinkedIn is full of a lot of spam, you know, so, and then, you know, none of us have business cards anymore. And, you know, obviously DWEN, we're quite a defined community, so we can tend to find each other after an event, but a lot of other events don't offer that you do, Ingrid. And so, you know, you have to go and find someone after that event, and it's quite difficult. And I actually think this virtual networking actually leapfrogs over that you don't have to then struggle to try and stay in touch with someone on LinkedIn because you're actually on Zoom or WhatsApp, or, you know, you've joined a Facebook forum or whatever it might be that you're doing. But having that confidence is really, really important, in the same way that in the physical sense, going, hi, I'm Fee, this is what I'm here for. And I think we just need to all be mindful of that. When we're talking about networking, we are there to network. So what can we get out of that? How can we help each other? And it might just be a download and a kind of group huddle to get through what is an incredibly difficult time. Or it might be, actually, I'm looking for investment, can you introduce me to someone? Or I'm still trying to create this business, can you help me? I've seen an incredible, from the publishing industry, I've been working with a number of best-selling authors, and we've put together over the kitchen sink an incredible big online book club. And everybody is coming in and they're talking to each other, and the bloggers and the authors and the book clubs. And they're there to be entertained, but also to share. But also you can then see ideas happening from those networks. And so I think, embracing that opportunity is really, really important. And I know that that's something that you and I talk about all the time, is how do we embrace this time and embrace the power of virtual networking, but just make sure you do it in a structured way that doesn't exhaust you, and you've always got the why, I think is probably the key advice that I would give from my own experience. It's purely a personal kind of experience thing.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. It's the why. What am I getting out of it? And sometimes it can be a very business focused conversation. Sometimes it can be, as a group of us did in the UK earlier this week, it was just a very personal conversation of business women getting together, just having the chat and sharing their challenges, and understanding that everybody's, in a different place, some are in a very tough place, but knowing that there are others who are facing similar challenges can just be such a help from a personal motivation. Maria, I wanted to ask you about, you talked a little bit earlier about different industries, and a lot of us connect with, I work in the tech industry, but I work with women from, probably 30, 40 different industries. Is it different when you're connecting with people across different industries? Is there different mindset, behavior, different way of doing things?
Yeah, I think first of all, you've got to understand there's a different language amongst different industries. The tech industry, if you really know technology, you'll use short term. It's a shorthand language. And if you go to an event that has got tech, just get to understand what's the language, or an account. If you're going to accountants or legals, know what legal help you might need, because these are the areas that I think people get very confused in until it's your turn to dive in. So legally, you may need a lawyer for employment, but then you may need an employer for partnerships, which is totally different. So understand where you're going and who you're going to be speaking with. Don't be afraid to ask them which area of IT do they work in. And find out, ask them a question about their industry that you just don't know. What is it that's new and innovative that I should know that you're working on? Can you tell me a secret that nobody else knows so I can feel really good? There's a lot that happens in people's world that they know that we don't know. And I love that. Everybody has a value, everybody has a knowledge. And there's lots of introverts out there that know they can tell you something until they tell you, until you ask them. Be specific in some of the questions you ask, so that you can actually find out something that you really need to know. There's so many different areas. So in my world, I have to have accounts and legals. I have to have attorneys. I have to have distributors, content makers, graphic designers. My website needs to be done effectively. How does the website look as opposed to television? How does that look? Have I got an editor? Somebody asked me the other day, do you have somebody that can take a piece of content and put the graphics on and edit it and put it onto television? All those routes, and you can learn something from somebody. And I love that. But something Simon's saying on here about networking is don't forget to follow up. And you can say towards the end, do you mind if I follow up? I'll be sending you an email. try to also make sure that you are visual on that email so they remember who you are and what you look like, or send a link on LinkedIn or to your business. Remind the person what you are asking about and why, but continue that thread for people. And sometimes you just want to meet up with somebody or hang out with somebody because you quite like them. You know, they were good fun and you had an interest that was similar, because you never know where that's going to lead. But remember, everybody in the industry has a language and everybody has a secret. Find out what it is.
Really good advice, Maria. I really like that. And there was just looking at a question there on the chat. It was talking as well about kind of the maximum, you know, what's the right size when you have a virtual event. And I think from a DWEN perspective, which is the Dell Women's Entrepreneur Network, we tend to look at going back to what we were talking earlier. Why are you having an event? If you want to have a very personal, you know, in-depth discussion with the group, you probably need to keep it under 10, you know, between 5 and 10 to have that discussion. If it's maybe a section where it's about learning, you want to share, you can have a lot more. You know, obviously you can have up to a few hundred. But we did an event a few weeks ago and we didn't expect so many, and I think there was nearly 60 came on it. It was a local chapter event. And it was just interesting because it was very different than what we planned. We thought it was going to be around 15 to 20. So we did have to change the structure. And I think somebody has put up there, the rooms in Zoom can be very handy. But obviously you need to make sure you know how to work rooms in Zoom and understand and utilize the right technology for that. So go back to thinking, what do you want to get out of it? And that will determine the numbers. Is it a personal discussion or is it something more broad? We were having a bit of fun before we started the session. We were talking about getting ready for this webinar. And it brings us to, how do you prepare personally, physically, when you're going to a networking event? And I know in the past, if I'm going to a physical event, I'm very conscious. I'll always make sure I dress up, put the makeup on. And I think a lot of people are fairly similar, but everybody has their own style and their own way of doing things. We're all different. But it did raise the question, how do you prepare for a virtual one? Because we've all seen lots of people, you know, in different ways. Some people are very casual because that reflects the environment right now. Some people get dressed up. I always remember a tip where somebody said to me, if you want to get noticed, wear a bright color, hence the red dress. Probably more face-to-face. But any thoughts? And we'll bring you in here as well, David, for the male perspective, which is very important. How do you prepare for a virtual? Do you go casual or do you go professional, or what works for you?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I think I hope I haven't gone too casual today. I think that you know, we are in a more casual age. I think that's a good observation. I think people's business attire seems to be moving towards more casual, but I think there's certainly a limit there, and I think that some people tend to over casualize it online and think, well, I'm at home, people assume that I'm sort of in my gardening clothes, which I think it does, you know, maybe reflect as well as it should. I think it is important to still, you know, dress smartly enough, I suppose, is the right way to phrase it.
I have to just say though that I don't know if anyone saw Anna Wintour. She was actually photographed for the first time in a pair of tracksuits with a woolen jumper, but she still had the sunglasses on. I think that there is a time and a place. So when we were talking about the more personal chat we had earlier in the week, Ingrid, with some of the ladies from DWEN, I mean, I was falling over myself just to get to this 10 o'clock Zoom meeting. You know, I'd got homeschooling, I'd got dogs, you know, I'd overslept. And literally, I was really keen to connect with the ladies, so I didn't put my video on. I was, you know, had a old sweatshirt top on and my hair tied up with no makeup. And they were all like, put your video on, Fee. And I did. And in that context, it felt actually quite comforting. You know, it felt like I was with some friends and it was a coffee chat. And even though they are colleagues in the network, it felt very safe and okay. And that was really lovely. But I do think, you know, I would not want to be looking like that on this particular chat this morning. And I think that it is important, as Simon's saying, always look the part online. I think you should always look the part if it's in a business sense, I think that, you know, we shouldn't drop that. You know, I don't think that there's any reason to drop that. We still have to be professional, and we have to conduct our businesses as well as we can. And I think something Maria said earlier as well, just remember, you know, if I was sitting here in my pajamas with no makeup on and it's being recorded, when the lockdown's over,
They won't remember.
it might be a bit embarrassing.
In the background, please.
Yeah, the other thing I just wanted to pick up on was something else that Simon is gaining it on this chat. He's coming up with some really good comments, Simon Cox. But he was saying networking without a follow-up is not working. And I think I'd just like to add on some of my previous comments, is what is good about virtual working because of social media is we can follow up. You know, we can follow up far more easily on different platforms than just a kind of LinkedIn professional platform, you know, whether it's, you know, Instagram, Facebook or Snapchat, whatever it might be. So I just wanted to endorse what you were saying there, Simon, is, you know, just because it's virtual, you know, we should still follow up and we should still look the part, except when we're with friends.
Can I add to that from a psychological basis? We are very often stuck, if you're stuck at home and you get into Groundhog Day, what getting up, doing your makeup, getting ready for work does for you, it prepares you in that mindset. It doesn't matter whether you go and leave the house or whether you're just at home. Getting yourself to look the part is very helpful psychologically to prepare you for a day's work, because then you know that, right, this is what I'm tackling, this is what I'm working on, and make plans. And you know, the good thing about Zoom or being online is you can make notes and have reminders all around you of where you're meant to be going, what you're meant to be doing. So psychologically, that planning and that structure is very healthy at a time where people are uncertain, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going. So all that is very good for you to keep yourself focused, so you understand where you're going, what works. Put reminders up, sticky notes everywhere, it doesn't matter. Take them down if it's not working, put another one up. Just as reminders for you to focus on and have as those, you know, hints and tips of where you're meant to be going.
It's so true, because in whether it's virtual or not, in your, you know, when it was the old normal and we were out going to meetings, how you dress is how you feel and how you project, right? I mean, I love that charity Dress for Success, you know, where they help women coming out of domestic violence situations to dress amazingly, net-a-porter, so that they feel fantastic. And what you wear does give you a sense of confidence, and you know, we're still human beings, right? Just because we're having to isolate at this time, it doesn't change our psychology and our belief systems and what triggers our behavior. And looking good does make us feel good, you know, it clearly does. And you're looking beautiful, lady, and you as well, David.
Oh, that's some great advice, and thank you all for that advice. And I think it is really important, but always remember we're all different. What works for each person is going to be different, and we're all going to have, I think it's okay to be kind to ourselves. We'll all have off days as well, where we don't feel like getting dressed up, but we just have to think why we're doing it and what it's for. So I think we've had enough of the discussion here, David. We'll turn it back to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that. That was incredibly informative, and I think, you know, the nature of the thank you very much for participating. But the way you answered a lot of those questions, I think, has really addressed a lot of the questions, many of the questions we had in the chat. So I think it's been very effective in that respect. I know Maria really touched on. There was one question about how to plan effectively for networking, and I think, Maria, you did address this well. I don't know if there's anything else you want to maybe add to that. Anyone? Or you
know, I think if you run your own business, once you plan for your business, there is not, in my opinion, my biggest mistake was that I allowed other people to take control of certain areas of my business. You know, and I was told, don't micromanage. Well, I'm sorry, do micromanage. Know where the bottom line is. Do not allow your accountant to tell you where the money is. Know where your money is in your bank. Know what the legal situation is. It doesn't mean you have to go through all the details, but know where the bottom line of everything is. Know what is important. Know what communication people in different areas are having. Because if you trust people, they can go off on a tangent that isn't your tangent, the vision of your company. They can hijack your company. They can actually betray you when your company gets bigger. So what I'm saying is be conscious of every aspect of your company. Doesn't mean you do the work, but know where the buck stops. And fundamentally, you're in charge, the buck stops with you. Understand that. So know all of it. Even if you know bits of it, know all of it.
I think also, I totally agree with Maria and know from personal experience very much what you're talking about, Maria. But I think the other thing is that I just want to say in this time of lockdown, which is something that we've been discussing, Maria, is it's actually a great opportunity to do a lot of planning. It's actually a real opportunity to go, well, actually, a lot of the time when I'm just frantic and I haven't got the time to go through all those bits, I now actually have the time to do that. And it's very cathartic to be quite organised around that kind of planning and how you do that. So that's whether that's planning for a network event, whether that's planning for an online meeting, but also we have the opportunity to really plan for our lives. And one of the things that I know we discussed as well offline, Maria, was the ability now to create something different and new, and actually be yourself creator in this time and reach out and network to different people to help that creation. So for me, you know, it was with these authors and doing the great big online, and it's been phenomenal, and you know, great network that's bubbled up, that's hugely engaging, that we've literally done in 3 weeks. And that's my first foray into the publishing world, you know. So having the opportunity to create, but detailed and disciplined about it, I think is a great opportunity that we've got at the moment. So that's just what I'd add to that kind of planning.
And don't be afraid to ask, sorry, just to add to that, because we've been talking about how you communicate. Don't be afraid. If you're in charge of something, don't be afraid to say, actually, this is what I need from you. Don't expect people to read your mind. Stop tripping over yourself, waiting for people to come back. Say, I want this from you. This is what I'm in charge of. So whether it's the company or the website or you're doing marketing, this is what I need to make this effective. How can you bring in what you're going to add to this to make this effective for the company? Remember, it's for the company. So to make the company bigger, stronger, much faster, much more effective, and take that position. And now online or on the phone, it's much easier to do this. I need this from you. Can you deliver it? If so, by when? And how are you going to do it? So don't be afraid of the side of yourself.
One final tip I have when you're planning your network is think about who else is in your network and who's in their network. And that's just really crucial. I was introduced to Fee introduced me to Maria, Fee's introduced me to a lot of other people, I've introduced Fee to others. Yeah. And it's all that kind of, you know, even when you're looking at somebody on LinkedIn, is there somebody in that network that can help you? And that personal introduction is a lot better than you reaching out cold, particularly right now. And I think the other thing to remember right now is, you know, everybody is at home, so it's a lot easier to connect with people. They're picking up their phone here. They're there. And we're finding it's easier, even internally in Dell, when you're looking for people, they're not traveling on the road anymore. They're at home, so they have more time. So remember that.
Yeah, I think people are being quite generous as well with their connections at this time. You know, there's a generosity, and there should be a generosity. There really should be a generosity. I hope that it makes the world a better place, to be honest. I know that sounds glib, but I really hope it makes the world a more generous place, you know, and a warmer place. And certainly being in the centre of London, I mean, I'm literally in the centre of London, and it's pretty deserted. For the first time, I felt like there's a community in W1, you know, dog walkers, people are being very generous and supportive and considerate as well. And that is itself a network, you know, right on the streets as we're trying to get through this.
So everybody should buy a dog. Everybody should buy a dog.
Yeah. Oh, my dogs have been my lifeline.
Oh.
I'm surprised they've not barreled in, actually, but anyway.
When I was radio in the very early days of journalism, it was very funny. My kids were tiny, and I had my care looking after them. And I'm doing quite a formal radio interview. And in the early days of comedy, they had somebody, the Evening Standard had put in a journalist to heckle, to see really how hecklers work in a comedy club. We were in Camden, and it's a 300 plus seater, so almost 400 people in there. And this one woman did not stop heckling. She was eventually asked to leave, and she wrote a 2-page article about it. Fantastic in that way, but then it was followed up by radio, and the radio presenter was saying, well, they don't really like hecklers, and you know, what is this alternative comedy, blah blah blah. And the first thing I said was, thank you very much for allowing me to come on and give my point of view. So that disarmed him, because he thought I'd be a bit of an oik, comedy, all that stuff. And then halfway through the interview, my kids ran in, mummy, mummy, mummy. So, oh my Lord, this is live. This is going out to the whole of London. Anyway, my children were taken out. And actually, the presenter loved it, because it made you much more real. It made me then realize, oh, this is a woman who's doing a company. It's fairly new. We only had 2 clubs at the time. And they actually quite liked the fact that my kids had run in. So it's how you handle situations like that. So even the naked boyfriend or the naked girlfriend can be handled in a specific way. So remember,
I'm sure we should do the whole naked bit.
No, I'm talking about all those videos that are going out online. Should happen, find an answer.
Thank you very much for that answer. Going back just a little bit to what you were saying about, you know, the support network that you're seeing develop and people being a bit more compassionate. We have a question from Jules, who runs the Single Moms Business Network, and she loves networking, connecting with people, but she struggles with being in the audience in a webinar, because she wants to talk to you and for you to see her, hear her, and then get that connection that you would in real life. She finds speaking and not speaking and feeling invisible very lonely, and she wants to talk a bit about sort of growth and support, and how to sort of effectively navigate these times, you know, through networking, perhaps. What can you do to make that less impersonal?
I can jump in there, because you know, on the outside, I think, you know, people see me as quite a confident person. I'm a second time single mum, clearly not very good at marriages. And then to find yourself locked down. My daughter is 16, so I mean, she's older than having younger children, and I'm not sure which is better, because you know, you can say, well, young kids don't understand, but a 16-year-old does understand, and they're facing their own issues. And being locked down, you know, with hormones is quite an interesting experience, but it is really isolating. And I think we have to be really, really honest about this rather than avoid it. And, you know, one of the things that I think is critical at this time is the whole mental health issue around isolation. And I know I'm put my hand up and say I've personally struggled with it. I can really understand the question and the kind of the anxiety in that question, because it is really isolating, and it is, you know, it does take a little bit to get up and go, no, I'm going to push through this. I'm going to make the most of this. I'm going to do everything I can around that. And I've been doing some really, I committed to doing some really good mental health exercises. So I've got this book called The Source. I'm going meditating every morning. I'm doing exercises in the book, you know, and these days I just don't feel like it. But to be honest, before this happened, lockdown, there were days I didn't feel like getting up as well. You know, when you're running your own business, you're trying to provide for your family, you know, as the major breadwinner, there's days you just don't feel like it. And I think being really accepting of what that is and reaching out for help. And, you know, I reached out to Ingrid, but I'm having an exceptionally difficult time at the moment with my business. You know, is there contracting opportunities? Are the things available? Because it's really important to keep that going, to put your hand up, to ask questions, like Maria said, and just try and push yourself through those. And when you say mental health, you know, people seem to think that's like psychosis. Mental health is on so many different levels, and it is such a challenge at the moment for many of us. But I really appreciate it from a parent point of view and a personal point of view of how quite scary it is. It is quite scary. I've got quite early on in this, I got poorly. I have had pneumonia 3 years ago. I was petrified what I was going to do with just me and my daughter in the house and 2 dogs. You know, so it's you have to reach out and ask for help, and that's where this virtual networking and friends, new friends, I found have really helped me. But I've also had to have the confidence to go, can you help me, please? And you know, it's not easy. I just think we've got to be accepting it's hard and be kind to each other.
Can I say, because, I spend half 3/4 of my life in work, developing a business, but also I'm a trained psychotherapist, psychoanalyst. So I have phone calls from people who are reaching out. And, you know, I've got somebody whose mother died, she's suicidal. I've got somebody whose father isn't allowed to go into hospital because he's got cancer and they won't take him in. I've got lots of people that are on the edge, if you like. People are isolated, and I think isolation can be absolutely so detrimental for the brain and emotionally. And if you look at the Romanian children that were brought up in orphanages, the reason they died, and I don't want to make this on that extreme of danger, but the reason they died is because they didn't get any TLC. You know, it's not that they weren't fed, it's not that they weren't clothed or looked after. They did not get that. And I think people are missing that at the moment. What I think is great, you said reach out, but I think it's also reaching in. Those of us who have got the strength, notice who needs your help, notice who is isolated, make that phone call to them, ask them, you know, what do you need? Or just intuitively call them, phone them up, and just talk about something. Distract people who are there isolated on their own. Talk about Netflix, talk about great shows on television. Do not watch things that are going to make you more anxious. Be prepared to take a call late at night. I take calls at 11:30 if I need to from somebody. If they call you at 11:30, that means they're in some sort of problem. You know, answer a call. If you can't speak, tell them you can't speak now, but call them back. Follow up to people. Befriend them, reach in. Get hold of them and give them the confidence and steady their mind. You know, help them structure their mind. Just as much as we structure a business, our mind needs structuring. What are you worried about? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough water? What's your bank account like? What's your first fear? So a very quick counseling tip is listen to what they're saying, but listen underneath what people are saying. You know, what is their real anxiety? Their real anxiety will be shown to you when they repeat something. But the very basics of all our existence is, am I going to have enough money to carry on over this next period of time? Be practical in your advice. Show them how to reach out, or you can do and help them and go back to them. But follow through and be practical as well. Once they've got that stability, then you can help them with their anxiety. Am I doing the right thing with my daughter? Am I doing the right thing? Somebody called me and said, my father is dying of cancer. This is what I'm doing at home. These are the vitamins and minerals I'm giving him. Am I doing the right thing? You know, I've done a certain amount of nutrition with people. I've not only listen to what he was saying, but he was anxious. Is he doing the right thing? Number one, yes, you're a great son. You're showing him love. That is the most important thing that somebody can do. Don't forget to reinforce what they're doing and how they're treating each other. This is so important. Yes, you have a value here. You're a great mum. So the lady that has just said that she's a mum on her own, Jules. You're a great mum, Jules. You're thinking of your daughter. Thank God you're doing that, because a lot of people will forget that that's what they're there for. You're making your daughter, and the same as you, you're making your daughter's life better and bearable in a very uncertain time. You know, you're showing her love. Now, as long as she's got food, she knows what direction she's going in, and she's doing her homework if she's that age, and she knows that you're there for her, then that is fantastic. That's all she needs to know, that she's safe and secure for the moment, and you are in charge. So we need to take charge of somebody else when they're feeling uncertain. It doesn't mean you take over their life, but just make them feel that they've got a backup. You're their backbone, you're their anchor, that you're going to be there, that they can reach out to you. So go into somebody. Don't wait for them to come to you.
Thank you. Some great advice there. I think, yes, I mean, it's a very unusual situation we find ourselves in, and we are at an indeterminate timeline, in predicting the timeline of when we'll return to normalcy, which also makes it more difficult. I think we're sort of 6 weeks in now, and I mean, it looks like there are some positive signs emerging from certain places. So hopefully there is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but there is still this uncertainty, which in itself is quite trying. Not really understanding when we're going to come out. So asking for help, I think, is great advice, and make sure that you are reaching out to people if you are feeling isolated. So I think I bring to the end of our questions. We've got a lot of messages of thanks here. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us this morning and to share about networking, and equally about other issues that people are facing as they are working from home and isolated. It's incredibly helpful. So I want to thank you individually. Each, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and it's been great.
I know that Ingrid also posted on the chat there, and I'll post it again, the link to DWEN, which is the Dell Women's Entrepreneur Network. It's DWEN.com. Please, look at that and consider joining. So that's what we get into, Ingrid.
Yeah, so it's open to all women entrepreneurs. Apologies to the men, but we do also have Dell for Entrepreneurs in some of our cities as well. But DWEN, DWEN.com, so women entrepreneurs all around the world at all levels, and aspiring entrepreneurs, because we know everybody at all levels of entrepreneurship just needs a little bit of support. And I think the thing with DWEN is we just bring the women together, and the magic happens when they come together. They learn from each other, they share. I think they challenge each other, they become more innovative, they partner, and that's what we love seeing happening. So very welcome to join us.
I am a massive advocate for DWEN, and I've been involved in lots of networking groups, and I've really been an advocate for what these guys do. They do it very, very differently to a lot of others. I was just looking at Simon saying, working, shouldn't we be connecting? I'm very happy to connect to anybody in this stream. It's pretty easy to find me online and all over the place, because that's part of my job and my business. But it's Fee Bendel, F-I, Bendel, B-E-N-D-A-L-L. Please reach out on any of the forums. I'd love to hear from anyone. And thank you for the comments from the audience too.
And if I can just add, so apart from being an entrepreneur and I am a therapist, and if anybody wants to reach out to me as a therapist at this time, obviously I'm not going to charge. I'm happy to talk to anybody. If you feel isolated, call me, email me, and I'll tell you. I'm always available. If I'm not, I will let you know then. I'm here, and I know how difficult this time can be. So please contact me. I'm here. So don't feel alone. You have got somebody that will back you up.
Well, that's a very kind offer. So please, yes, make sure you do reach out to people if you are feeling alone, and please check out DWEN as well. So I want to wish everyone a wonderful morning. I want everyone to stay safe, and hopefully we'll have some sunshine this weekend.
Mm.
Nice.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
And yes, thank you all again for such a wonderful session. And yes, everyone have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.